So welcome everybody, day 2 of the SEMA show, and we are here in the SEMA Business Women's Network booth and doing one of our creator education panels. Joining me today is Meyer of Meyer Racing and Motorsports Marketing Tips and all the things. She's here to talk to us about, first, Motorsports Marketing Tips. You just did a really kind of big webinar and you're launching a new program with Michaela and the Trackside Agency. So talk a little bit about, when it comes to content creators, especially if you're in motorsport, what are some of, if you had to name top 3 tips of important things to know right now, what are those 3 things?
Good to know. Fresh off the webinar. There's a few different ways of how you can make money with social media, especially for racers outside of traditional sponsorships. First up, affiliate links, discounts, that's kind of the easiest one to start out with. Usually companies give that to anybody.
Yeah.
But the downfall,
if they have them.
If they have them, yes. The downfall is, though, with racers, you've got to do a lot of content in order to really make any money out of that. So that's a good way to get your foot in the door with the company. But the next step you could do is UGC, or user-generated content.
Yeah.
And that is where you will still make the post, but you don't have to put it on your page. You can then sell it to the company and they can post it on their pages, or maybe they want you to post it as well. So maybe they'll give you a little bit more money for that extra exposure. But basically you're just the creative making the video or making pictures, and then they just want to use that as content to post on their pages, or maybe run it as ads. It's called user-generated content. So they're not making it. They're just going to pay you to do it.
Almost like you're like a contract media team for them.
Yeah.
Because you're at an event that they're not at.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or you're at races that they're not at. Because I come obviously from the racing world. So just thinking of products we use in the pits or the parts we're putting on our cars, that's content that the company can't make because they don't have a car. They're not at races. So we kind of have that advantage. So I think racers overlook that a lot because they're just all like, well, just put a logo on my car. And it's like, well, okay, that's a small part of it, but what else can you do? So making the content, because if you're a racer, you're probably already making the content, right? We can sell it now to the companies
and sell it in raw form so that you don't have to do the editing, which can be the really long, slow part. And a lot of larger brands, either they work media companies or agencies themselves, or they have an in-house editor. So that's a great point of all that raw footage you have, being able to provide that.
Yeah. And if it's a company that is more experienced with UGC, they'll send you the script. They'll tell you exactly what shots they want. And so it doesn't make it easier on you. You just need to be the one to create it because they can't actually create that content. And then the next step is the actual sponsorship or brand ambassador reveals, where it's basically the same content. You're just then posting it onto your pages, and that would be like an extra fee, right? For them to have that on your page. And this is all stuff that you could do outside of traditional sponsorships. I've done quite a few deals and I've never put their logo on my car.
Right. Interesting.
And so that it would be extra. That is something that they would want. And then the last thing is that then this is something kind of not really talked about much, is whitelisting. Or I've also heard it called black allow listing or something like that. But main term is whitelisting. And so that's where they run it as an ad, but it's through your page.
Right.
Because it gets that, you get exposure to your audience. It's not an organic post. It's just an ad. But they basically just put their credit card or their budget for it to run it on your page instead of on their page. So there's just one piece of content. There's so many different ways you could make some revenue from it outside of just being like, hey, sponsor my race car.
Right. And I think a lot of drivers are really waking up to the fact that they need social media, they need more content, but staying on top of it is really hard.
Yeah.
Even when your full-time job is content creation, it is really difficult. And for most of them, their full-time job is not content creation. They work a day job, they race, they wrench, they do all the things. So then it's one thing to capture the content. It's another thing to edit it. So speaking of kind of editing, what are some tips? Because you and I recently talked about some of this. What are some tools and tips you found to be helpful to produce content at scale if you're a content creator? Try to get some of that time back, because it can be really difficult.
It is. So just being very organized.
Yeah.
It's the main thing. Having a plan before you start going into filming content. So I like to just dedicate a day whether that's once a month or once a week, I'll go into the shop and my main goal is just to film content. And
Yeah.
so it might be staged. Some of it might be stuff like I actually need to change the oil in my machine.
Right.
But I'm going to plan it out so I know, okay, I need to bring 2 tripods so I get this angle or this angle, make sure everything's charged, make sure mice are working, all that stuff. So have that plan in place, know like what type of shots you need to get. And then I don't edit in the same day. So I'll film everything, get as much as I can, and then I won't actually put it together or edit it until maybe like the day I plan on posting it. But just know, I've kind of learned over my time doing it to get extra shots, because you might run into the case where maybe you're not editing it till a week later and then you realize, oh shoot, I didn't do an intro for this video. So just making sure you do extra shots and have a plan in place so it's not like, oh shoot, I'm missing this piece of it. But so I just try to film as much as I can. I use maybe 50% of it. There's other ways where you could use the same video but just change out the intro or change out pieces of it, but it's still maybe 80% the same. And it's just technically it's a new piece of content, even though maybe you're reusing a lot of it. And as you know, I'm a big fan of reposting content too. So just getting a more shelf life out of what you already have, especially if it's done well, chances are it's going to do really well again the next time. I reuse content that's 3-4 years old and it still does good for us.
Yeah. And from a, tools and technology side, so the other side of it is it's one thing to have all of this content and to post it. But then for your brand partners, they're going to ask, what was the value? What did we get out of that?
Yeah.
Right? And in some cases, so what do you talk a little bit about how you show the value to your brand partners? Because this is another area where you are very organized, which is where we bought this. And your passion for this.
I love racing the cars, but I'm not mechanically inclined. I don't understand how a combustion engine works. But my sister's the mechanical one. I've always been the one that does more of the business side of the racing. I like to look at the numbers and I like to see the data, and I have to do all the accounting. I have to talk to sponsors. And so especially when we're going into renewing with sponsors, it's like, okay, what did we actually do for you? Yeah, was it worth what you paid us to do? And so I would do monthly reports, quarterly, end of the year reports. And, social media is our biggest thing, because that's always been how I use our team to stand out from everybody else, is that we can do social media. I would just have spreadsheets for Megan Meyer Racing and Randy Meyer Racing pages for each of our Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And I would manually track all the engagement, the views, impressions. I would screenshot comments. So if we're making a product like about NGK spark plugs and people comment, oh, we use NGK in our lawnmower, I'd screenshot that so I could write that in the report to show, hey, like our fans do use your product. We're reaching your target market. But it would take hours and hours and hours to do all these spreadsheets to manually log and track everything. And also I didn't know what that dollar value was. So I'd say, hey, we got 1 million views on our videos this month, but it's like, I don't know sales on that end. So I can't put a dollar amount to it. That's kind of more, I'll give them a report and then they kind of have to figure out, did that translate to sales or what's the brand value for that? So when you had approached me with Autofluencer, first off, is like, oh my gosh, this is going to save me so much time. Yeah, because I don't have to track the post anymore. But then also with the earned media value, it's so easy to just log in and you see that dollar amount there, what I will use to have as my goal. So, we try to do a 3-to-1 return on investment for our sponsors. Yeah. So if say they give us 20 grand for a sponsorship, well, then I want to try to give them $60,000 back in that earned media value. Right. And so it's so easy with Autofluencer just to be able to log in and see that. And it's like, okay, so this past month we either did really well or maybe we fell off because we only did like 2 posts. So then I know, okay, for the next month I need to step it up so we can still try and reach that goal of say $60,000 or whatever it is, and just use that as how I'm measuring how successful our sponsorship is. And it's so much easier for the brand side too, because then they don't have to go in and try to figure out, did that actually correlate to sales, or what is their measurement for the brand value? And so it's so easy for both sides. And that's why I love using Autofluencer.
I think to that point, what's important is the concept of earned media value, and there's still a lot of education. So in mainstream influencer world, so we're talking to like, oh my God, I love my mascara. It's so great. In that world, and there's tons of platforms that measure that performance. And so they have this concept of an earned media value where they're looking at that value of those impressions and those engagements on that content. And while sometimes a thing like mascara, that's a no-brainer, like that can be an impulse purchase. But if you're buying a transmission or a chassis, that is not an impulse purchase. That is not something I'd be like, oh, show, that's awesome. Wow, click this link and buy. Okay, you got to go out, you got to look at the car. Maybe you click through on the link, but then you look at the website and then you think about it. And you're like, oh, maybe I got to go talk to someone about it first. Maybe I got to go do some measurements. Maybe I got to talk, figure it out.
Yeah. And or you wait for a Black Friday sale.
Or you wait for a Black Friday and then you're waiting for a budget. And then to your point, even though that original racer or influencer had that original link, oh, dang, because I went to the website, I got retargeted with the Black Friday sale, and that's what I ultimately clicked on and then bought, and then the influencer got no credit for that.
Yeah.
So it is really hard. Like the sales journey is not linear. And for marketers, there is no such thing as like, oh, well, we did this thing and it sold 100 products, so we're going to continue to do that thing. There's no silver bullet. And so with earned media value, working with sponsoring racers or working with influencers or content, that is an awareness clay. That is all day long an awareness clay. And how you measure awareness is typically to do high-level awareness as a brand or as a marketer. You have to build the content. You have to create the content. You have to edit the content yourself. You have to be at the event. You have to capture it all. Then you have to put it on your page. And the social networks, by default, they got to make money to keep them lights on. So for most brands, your content doesn't get as much reach as, let's say, Megan's content. And nor do you have the same audience as, that's why you partner with so many different influencers, is their audiences and the engagement is so different. So earned media value at its core is this is the money we save as a brand in not having to produce, create, and engage these audiences. So it saved us $60,000 in media value, right? And so that is very common, right? Even in racing, they have it called a little different. There's a platform, Hook It, or other spawn tech companies, and they call it like earned advertising value, right? Same concept. Right? This is money you didn't have to spend in ads that somebody else is doing for you. And that's been a big education even for us with both racers is, no, we're not saying this led to X amount of sales. There is absolutely no report that can tell you definitively this one thing drove all your sales. People don't know about your product or they don't think your product is cool. You're not going to have the sales you want, period, right? And no influencer, if you have bunk product, no influencer is going to help you there. Just pro tip. It's called Prime. If you've ever tried it, that's why that is hurting and going bankrupt. It's a big thing and it's helpful and it's a talking point, but it is not, just like anything, a silver bullet metric because there isn't one. And I think as in any industry or any marketer or any influencer, we want something where we can say, this is the number. We want certainty. And that's the trick with marketing or sales or, there is no definitive certainty on anything. So yeah, but it has been helpful and it's a number and we give brands and soon in Q1, we'll be giving racers the ability to adjust how that number calculates. So, one thing to talk about is sponsor bricks.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about how racers and even influencers or builders, you'll see these are all my build partners and all my build sponsors and they'll list all the partners, right? That may not carry as much weight. And we actually have a friend in common at a particular brand who for them, they don't value a sponsor brick as much as they value content only about their brand.
Yes.
Right? If it is just about us, our product, we'll give it this value. If it's a sponsor brick, we're going to give it this value. Right? And being able to split that. And as a racer, when you're doing it all manually, that was really hard to report on that.
So for us, one thing that, like I said, social media is kind of our big asset for our race team. So what I always try to do is because we have a title sponsor.
Yeah.
So, and a part of our agreement with them is that we would do, X amount of posts per month for them. So I need to do just exclusive posts
right
about them But I also, we have other partners too. They're not at the same level, but I do need to also include them in our social media. So trying to find where is that balance at?
Yeah.
Make sure that if it's someone that's just giving us product, well, I'm not going to promote them as heavily as I do someone that's our title sponsor, that's giving us funding for our team, because obviously they need more hosts. They need more awareness there. So yeah, so that's when it is like, okay, so I do need to do exclusive posts about like our biggest partners, our main sponsors, and just have one post be about them. And when you're doing, product posts, then that's easy. But it gets hard when you're doing like, say, a race recap,
Yeah.
or you want to show the whole car and you see 10 different logos on the car. Well, then, they're still getting that exposure. So we still tag them and do the hashtags and mention them in the captions. But yes, it is lower value that they're getting because there's only so much real estate. And if you're doing it for 10 different companies, then it's, it's 110.
Yeah.
Versus if it's just about one company, they get 100%.
Right.
So just trying to, where's that balance at? How many posts should you do for your title sponsor? Sometimes they do have a requirement of like, hey, we want one post a week. That's just about us. So kind of, it all depends on your contract and agreement with that brand. But yeah, just kind of knowing the value of it. And, and also you can use that once you kind of figure that out, you can use that to your advantage and be like, hey, I want to be sponsored by this company. So I can use Autofluencer to show, hey, we've done exclusive posts for this other product before. These are the results we got. Yeah. So this is what we could do for you, and use that as a case study. Yeah. Versus where it is just kind of a sponsor break. You're tagging everyone on there and it's just like, okay, cool, but that doesn't really help us out.
So let's transition. We're here at SEMA, and let's talk about if you're a racer coming to SEMA, we got PRI coming up. So this will go live before PRI. So when you go to a trade show, I definitely seen racers kind of swing and miss on this one, on how they approach brands that they don't currently work with at a trade show, or like, what's the value you would say to a racer? If you're giving a racer advice, if they're like, hey, Megan, we're going to go to PRI for the first time, what should I do? Like, what would you tell them?
Start last year. Yeah. So if they're going up to the booth, they haven't had any communication before, no relationship, and they don't know who to talk to or, what to say. And they just walk up to anybody in the booth and they're just, whoever, I do this race, I'm looking for sponsors. Here's my deck, or here's my business card, or here's my hero card. And you're giving it to anybody in the booth, then 9 times out of 10, it's not the correct person. It's not who's making the decisions.
Right.
Sometimes that person is only there for maybe the first day of the show. They're not there for the last couple days. And so it's always good to, like I said, have a plan. So reach out to them before PRI show starts or before SEMA starts. Figure out who it is exactly you need to talk to. I let's use LinkedIn to message them. Figure out if they're even going to be at the show.
Right.
So you could then try to book a meeting with them, get to know them in person. If not, then try to do it over Zoom or phone call. You got to build a relationship with them first. You can't just go out to a company and say, hey, I want to use your product. Will you sponsor me?
Yeah.
They're going to be like, well, we don't know who you are. What's your history? What can you do for us?
Right. If you can even get time with them. Yeah.
Yeah. If you can, yeah. Because usually they're booked out. So it might be hard to even get a meeting with them. So yeah, don't wait until the week before PRI. Start doing it now.
That's great advice. Yeah. I think it goes, definitely a theme, and something that's always impressed me about you is, I know it's hard, and, a lot of people in racing or even in content creation, they're creatives, right? So being really organized can be trickier, but having that plan, having that organization can help you so much in the long run, right? Like, you do the upfront work to make the things on the back end, because you don't want to, PRI or SEMA, they're an investment.
Yeah.
Right? The hotel, I am totally spaced on booking my hotel for PRI. And then I started looking, they're like $600 a night. I'm from Indianapolis, so that's really annoying that they're that. I'm like, how is it so expensive? So I'm actually staying with a friend who lives near downtown. It's such a huge investment. So to put in that investment to go to a show as a racer, which you already have a very costly habit, passion project, and to have it not result in anything is a bummer. Yeah. So put that plan together ahead of time. And even if you can go for a day, if you have that plan, I would definitely say it's worth going.
It might seem a whole lot of work up front, but just imagine you're going to the show with no plan. So you're just walking around wherever. Maybe you print off 20 versions of your deck and you're just trying to hand them out to whoever you can. And they're not going to actually look at it.
Right. Not going to go in trash. Ain't nobody wants to take that.
So like you're wasting your time doing that, where your time should be spent up front planning, organizing. Maybe instead of trying to reach out to 20, 30 companies, maybe you just aim for 10.
Yeah.
And just do really good with 10. And you spend your time there instead of just going up to the first 30 you see.
Yeah. I love that. Such great tips. Thank you so much. And Megan's very popular today. She's actually about to record a live podcast also in the SBN booth. So good job, you. Thank you, everybody. Hopefully this was helpful, and hit us up with any questions that you might have.